I hope everyone can hear me. Welcome. This is part one of a two-part series of conversations that marks the exhibition at DLR Lexicon of Unsteady Ground, curated by Marisha Wikiewicz-Carroll. I hope I pronounced that correctly. A collaborative exhibition by artists Cora Cummins and Searsha Higgins, awardees of a visual art commission from Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council, and it was funded by the Arts Council. I'd just like to say a quick thank you as well to Moran Bean Noon, Engagement and Learning Programme Coordinator at DLR Lexicon, and Maura Davey, the Assistant Arts Officer. And thanks to Camilla as well for helping with all the technical issues. And of course to Cora and Searsha for inviting me to be part of these conversations. So both Cora and Searsha are residents of Dún Laoghaire and have drawn their research and conversations from landscape and history, and by looking globally towards Everest and the remote island of Papa Westray on the most northerly islands in the Orkney Island archipelago, which I think Searsha is there at the moment. And she'll be back in Dublin for the talk that's happening on March 10th. So I hope some of you may join us again for that. And I'd like these conversations to flow into each other, a bit like the exhibition itself, in fact. So we have some time now to spend individually with each artist. I'm hoping, that things will flow into each other. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit quickly about me. I'm an artist as well. I'm not a curator or a critic, and I'm based in Kerry, and I'm in a hotel at the moment in Kenmare because my internet at home isn't great. So I work in film and moving image, and I'm going to this conversation is going to be influenced by, I think, by the way that I interpreted the work. So there's going to be room for questions as well at the end. I think about 10 minutes or so, and you could add your comments in the chat box. That'd be great. So the exhibition features new work in etching, video, photography, and sculpture, and it connects the artist's parallel research interests in environment and landscape change. And it reflects on losing what seems permanent, both, I think, psychologically and physically. And I think these ideas are extremely relevant at the moment. So I'd like to first introduce Cora, and then we can start the conversation. Cora was born in Carlow, and she studied fine art at DIT and NCAD. Cora works through printmaking, video, and publication. She is co-founder of the publication The Fold, and has had a host of exhibitions in venues such as Visual Carlow, the Dock, the Galway Art Centre, the Lab, the list goes on. And Cora lives in Dalkey and lectures on the BA in art at IADT. So I'd like to begin, Cora, just I suppose by asking you how you met Searsha and how you embarked on the Visual Art Commission.
Thank you, Mieke. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can hear you.
Yeah, so Searsha and I met actually in IADT. She started working there about 15 years ago, and we became friends. And I suppose I've travelled up to Orkney when she moved up there, and travelled to Manchester when she worked there, and she also has a house here in Dún Laoghaire. So yeah, we're pals, and she's an artist and I'm an artist. We work in different ways, but we've collaborated before on some projects. Another one that was funded by Dún Laoghaire County Council was linked to the Fold, the publication I do a few years back. So we've been kind of, and then I've had work in shows up in Pappy. So yeah, I hadn't shown work for years, and I saw the application for the Visual Art Commission, and I thought this is a really good opportunity to get back to making work. And I asked Saoirse would she be interested in applying with me. So we put in a joint application for the commission, and delighted to be awarded it.
And what was the timescale, Cora? Was it during the pandemic or?
Yeah, we applied for it before the pandemic, and I know the title Unsteady Ground definitely applied to COVID, but I come up with the title to kind of describe dealing with my own personal loss. My husband had died 6 years before that, and I hadn't been able to do any artwork. And just reflecting on when you think things are steady, when you think you've reached a plateau, and then the ground literally opens up underneath you. And that happens in all kinds of loss, and definitely happened in COVID. So it was really strange. We got the award, and then COVID happened. And then we really questioned whether we do the show, because it was like, oh, everyone will think it's about COVID. But no, it was before COVID. So we had a 3-year run-in, really.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I've ever had for an exhibition. And
That's
also we got funding as well, which is great.
sounds like, yeah, that sounds great that you had so long. It sounds like a dream to have that amount of time.
Well, you do always leave it till no matter
Yeah,
how
I know.
you think about it for that length of time, but it's always leave it to the
Yeah,
last.
I mean, especially, yeah, of course. And it's a bit like me as well. I mean, you also lecture. I'm not lecturing, but I have other work outside my main practice, which does connect with it, but it's still, you know, you're focused on that as well, partly. So it's always a balancing act, I think, as an artist, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely when you're a parent as well. Yeah.
That too.
Time is definitely not available very much. So it was absolutely brilliant to have that time. Yeah, so COVID happened, and yeah, so the project did change as well while we went through that 3 years of developing the project. So we probably would have started off thinking about it stemming from being here and walking. We would have walked, like I walk all the time up Killiney Hill and on the beach, and I swim in the sea. Searsha is the same. And you know, we brought in some historic figures from the area that we were thought we'd be interested in working in. But definitely the project developed and changed as the 3 years went past, because COVID happened and Saoirse ended up being locked in on Pape for months and months on end. Yeah, so yeah, the project kind of worked that she made work up there, and I made work here. But then my work kind of started looking elsewhere. So
yeah, that'll be an interesting topic to raise with her as well, how she dealt with that. Yeah, on a very small island. It's an interesting one for the next conversation. I was wondering, actually, I'm not familiar with the printmaking process, so it would be interesting to hear from you how that works. It's a very physical and material process. So
yeah, it doesn't really make much sense. I'll actually, will I share my screen so that
that'd be great. Yeah,
I have some pictures here.
lovely.
Okay.
So
Oh, full screen.
that's okay.
And yeah, I kind of had some pictures. Is that full screen? It is it? I think, yeah. Sorry. I kind of have the images, but we've kind of skipped ahead. So
That's okay.
back to those ones.
If you want to go to the ones that you want to speak about, it's fine.
Yeah, well, I just had these pictures in because during the few years trying to come up with a way of collaborating. Yeah, there's some pictures here during COVID of us printing. So Searsha came to my practice and tried printing, and then she was measuring the spectra and the moon with her lovely technology. And so we were kind of in each other's worlds for a little bit and tried out a few things. So they're just some images of the way we try to do stuff. And okay, God,
yeah, and the text that you have there it's an interesting one, because you acquired the book, but Saoirse then went on to.
Yes, that's actually, sorry, I can't
yes.
to skip without flicking through. Yeah, so this I was talking about the local figures. So one of the women we focused on was Lady Huggins, and she came from Monkstown, born in 1848, but she's a major player in the world of astronomy. And her and her husband set up, like, what do you call it? An observatory in London, and they created this book called the Atlas of Representative Stellar Spectra, and it came out in 1897. So I'd heard about this and actually found the book on eBay, and I bought it. And I thought, there's lovely plates at the back where they used gelatine plates to record what they were looking at. So really early photography. And it was actually, Searsha was kind of more inspired by this book because she's kind of working in similar way, you know, looking at the stars and recording the passage of the light of the stars, which is called the spectra. That's what it's called. And so that's why we included the book in the show. So Lady Huggins was,
yeah.
Sorry.
And
I just skipped it. I'll go back to Nan, but yeah, so I'll just talk about the etching process, I suppose. So I see loads of our students of mine are on this, so they know what I'm talking about. But for those who don't, etching is creating an image onto copper plates. So I love like working with copper, and that of itself is an element and taken from the mountain and the ground. So the image is created on the copper plate, and that's the plate for one of the pieces. And this is the 9 plates laid out on the studio floor in IADT. This is the large print I made. So it's covered in a wax ground called bitumen, black, and that hardens, and then you draw through the wax onto the plate, but you're not scratching into the copper, you're just kind of drawing through the wax, and then the plate goes into acid, and the acid etches in. So that's where the word etch comes from. So the image is etched into the copper. And there's some pictures of me. Then it's inked up. So the plate needs to be inked up each time, and the ink is dragged over the surface and then wiped and then rolled through with paper in an etching press. So that's the machine there that I'm wheeling. Very
physical.
It is, yeah, it is. It's very physical and old-fashioned. And I'm always saying to the students that we're working with medieval technology, yeah, cutting-edge medieval technology, and yeah, it doesn't really make much sense, but that's what I do, and that's more wiping of the plate. So each plate has to be wiped and carried and put on the press and printed, and that's.
And those plates were specifically for Monument, I believe.
Yeah.
Which there's an interesting, you took a very different approach in that making that work, because you put so much effort into it, and it means so much, and then you only did one print, and then you use the plates in an installation. So yeah, there's a whole story really there.
Yeah. So yeah, the usual process of a printmaker is you'll make a plate, copper, and all the work that goes into that. The payback is that you'll make an edition, so you'll have many prints of like a limited edition, but you'll have a few versions of the image. And as I was making the monument piece, the big mountain, it's called Monument, it was kind of, Marisha definitely helped with this. Marisha Carlin, it was great to have her input into the show, in that it was like having a tutorial. It was like somebody talking about my work, and you know, I had this idea that maybe I would use the plates to make another piece of work. So I made one print of the mountain, it was just a once-off, and then I've crunched and wrestled the plates, and they form the piece called Fallen. So there's one other technique that I use, the mezzotint, which are the small pieces in the show are made from mezzotint. And mezzotint is on copper as well, but it doesn't use acid, it's not etched. And it actually, a black mark is created by thousands and thousands of little dots that are rocked onto the screen using a little tool called a rocker. And the term "off your rocker" actually came from people who were rocking plates back in 1700s. I think Dublin was the centre of mezzotints, and little people would have to rock these huge plates 1,000 million times, and they went off. Yeah, the word "off your rocker." So, so the plate is a lovely black and prints as black, so it takes on the ink, and then the image is shone back in. So I love the idea of shining into the dark, and so that's why I chose to make the mezzotints for the show as well. And they're very small because I didn't rock the plates myself. I bought them pre-rocked. I'm not a complete masochist, and they're very expensive. So that's, I can only work with small, but I wanted to work with the scale as well. So I've got Monument, which is big, and then the mezzotints are tiny, but they're of big things. So the mezzotints are of the moon and the aurora and clouds. So the aurora was kind of like a reflection of what Searsha was doing up, she was photographing the aurora. So I made that little mezzotint. I have a picture of it if this stop. And I did a cloud because of how I'm always interested in clouds, how clouds are this kind of ungraspable thing, and yet they can cause havoc. And actually we're talking about Mallory and the mountain climbing, and there's a really kind of sad story towards the end of when Mallory was climbing the mountain for the third time. A cloud came in and just covered over him, and he was never seen again until his body was recovered tens of decades later. So kind of the idea of this cloud that looks so kind of vaporous and how it can cause trouble. And what else? Yeah, so there's another one called The Dark Side of the Moon. And the dark side of the moon is, I was really interested. I found out that there's loads of Irish people, well, loads of people have craters named after them on the dark side of the moon. I kind of thought that's interesting. Like you've got a monument to you, but it's unseeable. And I was really interested in the idea of how you remember someone who is really great in your life, big in your life. That was my husband, Jason. And so, since somebody puts a memorial on the dark side of the moon, nobody can see it. And yeah, Shackleton has a crater named after him. There's an Irish woman, I wrote this down somewhere. There's a good few people have craters named after them on the moon. So that was kind of a few Irish people.
That's incredible. Yeah. I never knew that.
No, well, art does, doesn't it? You kind of get, and it's all these little threads that all start linking together. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's Nan Shepherd as well that has partly inspired some of the work. And for me, it was interesting to hear this as well because of her Living Mountain book and how she lived. And there are a couple of similarities with how I live here in Kerry, and I'm actually making a film partly about a mountain at the moment. So that was really coincidental.
And had you heard of Nan before?
No, I hadn't.
No, see, she isn't that. I mean, she isn't that well known. It's kind of, oh, you never heard? I hadn't. I've only heard of her in the last few years because her book was only printed very quietly in 1971, and it was Robert McFarland, who writes great stuff about nature. He kind of I think he was behind getting it republished, and so it only really came back into vogue the last few years. So yeah, she's fascinating. So she grew up in Scotland, and she's the opposite to the lads like Mallory and climbing Everest and conquering the mountain. Like she even spoke at that time. So she wrote the book in 1940s, towards the end of the war, and she was from Scotland, and her mountains are the Cairngorms range, and it was all about the local, and just she was lived right beside him, and she just walked every day and not interested in the summit. And she even spoke about how she was kind of anti reaching the summit. It was all about what you see on the way to somewhere. So it's so kind of like, it's all about mindfulness really, and about how she loved when she found evidence that the earth was indifferent to human consciousness. And like there was like, she'd talk about the elementals, which were the sun and the wind and the rain and the snow, and how it was just making the landscape. And she was more interested in the chasms in the valley than she was the summit.
Yeah, which is in complete contrast to George Mallory's expedition, and yet you've brought the two together, and they even connect with Searsha's work as well, and her process, I think, so.
Yeah, well, Saoirse's living her space of research. Yeah, she's like, she's there in Pape, and yeah, she's a Nan Shepherd of Pape, definitely.
Yeah, a bit, yeah. So I was thinking maybe I could show that short clip of a short reading of Nan Shepherd's book. Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Summer on the high plateau can be as delectable as honey. It can also be a roaring scourge. To those who love the place, both are good, since both are part of its essential nature. And it is to know its essential nature that I am seeking here. To know, that is, with the knowledge that is a process of living. This is not done easily, nor in an hour. It is a tale too slow for the impatience of our age. Yet, often the mountain gives itself completely when I have no destination, when I reach nowhere in particular, but have gone out merely to be with the mountain, as one visits a friend with no intention but to be with him. Here one realizes these are mountains, not a shattered plateau, for they are seen as peaks piled on peaks, a majestic culmination. These peaks seem to hang splendidly aloft above the eye, giving a new sense of the grandeur of these mountains.
So that, yeah, it's definitely, there's a connection there for me, for sure.
And I love the kind of quietness of her life. Like she was an academic, and she lectured, and she just, yeah, she wrote it it took 40 years before it was published, that book. And she's a novelist as well, but kind of came out at a time when Chatwin and all the great kind of men, right, from feminists, but all the kind of men mountaineers, it came out in the 70s along with them, and kind of was ignored. And now she's getting kind of praise for her.
Yeah, ahead of her time.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and I think, did she write in Doric as well, or am I getting completely confused? I don't know, perhaps not, but it's an interesting Gaelic. It's the Scots. Yeah, there's a variation, and it was just came across in that video as well. It was interesting to me. There's some words that are similar to Flemish, which is strange, and I speak Flemish, so yeah, it's a strange one. Yeah, so there was another question I wanted to ask about the titles of your work as well, and how they can be connected to, again, to, I suppose, to loss perhaps, and then they're connected to geography, or, you know, they have a double meaning almost as well.
Yeah,
some of them.
Yeah, I was interested in I was yeah, well, when when Jason, my husband, died, he was in the art world. He ran the visual artist news sheet. So we were kind of like, partners in crime in art. So it's not just like your husband, but your support for art club all fell apart. So I couldn't make art for many years. And what I did was I read loads of books about grief. I've read them all. I've read Joan Didion, Rebecca Solnit, Marion Coates, C.S. Lewis, Julian Barnes, Ronan Barthes, even Sheryl Sandberg wrote one because her husband dropped dead too. So I just kept reading these, and I was just really interested in how the words to describe grief are kind of very linked in with landscape. You kind of hit a cliff, you fall off a cliff, or it comes in waves. And I've always worked in landscape, so I was kind of interested in that when I proposed this show as well, to kind of how those words for place and landscape, and of course it's the cliche of getting over your mountain, or getting over it, or reaching your summit, or they'll even say getting over grief, and I'm more land shepherd in that you have to kind of live with it. So so the title, I wish I could show you, but I'm sure everyone's seen the show. The big monument piece, it's a 9-piece etching. I call that monument, and it's monument for Jason, but I just call it monument. And the other piece beside it, the copper plates that are crunched up and kind of form another kind of mountain, a crumpled heap maybe. That's called Fallen, and it kind of came from the song by Depeche Mode, My Monument, It Fell Down. Just kind of like that. And the blue,
and Cora, and I was just going to say, the exhibition, it's sort of very evenly set up. You occupy the entrance, really, the first part, and then you connect with Searsha's work, and the benchmark flag is really kind of, it's really, there's a meaning behind where everything is placed, obviously. And you were telling me about that, actually, that benchmark flag of hers connects again to the mountain with, you can explain this better than me.
Well, yeah, I suppose, the benchmark flag, I suppose, it measures, but what benchmarks do, they measure sea level, and Saoirse's been measuring those, and they're kind of, I suppose, warning signs if you're kind of an impending end of the world if the sea level rises to those benchmarks. But of course, mountains are measured off the benchmark, like, so whatever it is above sea level. I'm not a geographer here, but I was mountains are measured off that mark, so that was kind of like an interesting thing as well. And the cracking of the ice and the aurora, and Searsha's like reflections on the sea, and then her studies in the video at the end. It's all kind of time, like that's what artists do, isn't it? We have to spend time in a place, and it takes time to make art, and you need to be in that place for a while. Except, as you were pointing out to me yesterday, like I've never been in Everest, and that really isn't Everest. I just kind of chose Everest as an archetypal mountain, like the one that the most well-known mountain, that's meant to be the highest mountain. According to Western mountaineers, but before that, like it was a sacred mountain, and it was a goddess mountain, and people like the Tibetans and the people from Nepal kind of didn't really climb it because they worshipped it. It was their god.
Yeah. There was no need to.
Need to climb it.
Yeah, I mean, why? Yeah.
Get over it. No, it was there, and they were with it. And I think still they do have to carry out like a service, like a religious kind of service. All the mountaineers have to do that. But then I was interested in all the deaths as well, and all the people left behind, the mostly women left behind, or partners left behind from all the guys who die, and women.
Tragedies, yeah.
Not needed tragedies, kind of senseless, but that kind of strange mania to get up that mountain, something to do with being an artist as well, because it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, no.
We kind of have to, yeah, but it doesn't involve, we don't at least have to put oxygen masks on us and climb up Everest. Yeah, so you can imagine, that's the great thing about art, is that you can imagine, you can make an Everest if you want to. You don't have to go there too.
Yeah, well, exactly. You can go there, but not, not go to those lengths. But
yeah, you can imagine as well. You can project yourself to the space.
Well, yeah, and you have different approaches, both of you, but they work equally well.
Yeah, we'd definitely be reading the same books. Well, actually, Searsha was reading some very high-end academic books because she did her PhD, but the more lighter reading we'd share, and we'd be chatting all the time about her projects and my projects. So it made sense that we'd do this project together. It definitely helped to have somebody doing the show with me as well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Someone you know well, and yeah, that you have things in common with. No, somebody just asked, is the exhibition currently on view? It is indeed, and it runs until March 13th, I believe, or is it coming down on that day?
Wasn't one day in March. Yeah, I think that's the last day. I think it's on that day. Yeah, because my mum that day, so hopefully it's still on.
Yeah, I mean, and when you go there, you sense that there has been an immense amount of research and time spent, but it has been for me really interesting to learn exactly what went into making the work, and hearing the reasoning behind a lot of it. So yeah, it's well worth visiting, and set some time aside and spend time there. I think if there are any more questions, it would be great if anybody has anything they'd like to ask. I can also keep asking questions, but I don't want to be the only one necessarily. Someone else asked, the Scottish lady is Nan Shepherd.
Nan Shepherd, yeah. I had a nice picture of her book cover on my slideshow, and maybe anyway, she Nan Shepherd, but she's also on the £5 note in Scotland. They put her on the £5 note if you go to Scotland. Oh, Jeannie,
is that okay? Oh yeah, that's right. She's on the.
Yeah, she's on
currency.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'd like to add as well that, I mean, there's so much emphasis on digital and web-based art, and it's a massively interesting area in contemporary art, but it's also wonderful to see printmaking and work that's material and physical, and that obviously there's a reason for it and a purpose and a need.
Yeah, the students I work with in college they just love getting into the print room, and just working physically, with ink and messy stuff and acid and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's really important, even though you kind of think that you're fighting for a dying art most times, but yeah.
Well, I mean, we all have those moments, I think, no matter what medium we're using. But then you just can't help yourself. you just have to keep making. Yeah, exactly. So do we have which mezzotint do you prefer to, do you prefer to work in mezzotint or etching?
Oh, etching. Yeah, etching. Because mezzotint is it can be quite quick, or it's so subtle. You can go beyond. You can destroy it. You have to kind of just know when to stop polishing. And yeah, I love etching because you can work back into the plate. You've got, well, those copper, the plates I made for all the etchings, there would be aquatint as well. I can't even explain what that is, but aquatint is an extra layer of process where like resin from trees is melted onto the metal, and a tone is put on the plate. So it's like 2 stages of getting in and out of the acid. So yeah, I love etching. I must print a t-shirt that says that.
I'm just having a look. Oh, do you feel that the process becomes part of the narrative?
I definitely think for this, I am talking about the process a lot for this show, because of the physicality of making, and then I ended up showing the copper plates and the kind of the work behind it. Yeah, definitely for me, and I know some people kind of say, oh yeah, it took you a long time, big deal. It's, you know, it's about the work. It definitely was, it's definitely part of it. Me being a printmaker, me doing this technique that doesn't really make sense, but it's the only thing I can do. And also like I made those prints, and I didn't think I could make a print another plate. I was done. Like, so I really did feel I climbed a little bit of a mountain there myself. Yeah, thanks.
And yeah, I'm just sorry.
I wish you were in the gallery. It'd be so much nicer. But
yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, it's nice in a way. I think there are probably people here from around the country, perhaps. So, you know, maybe that wouldn't have been as straightforward. And
I keep forgetting recorded as well, so I better stop babbling.
So I'm just having a look. No, I think that's it. No more questions. Oh, great. Clodagh here again. Okay, so there are 3 people using 1 computer in Clodagh's company. How do you feel working on such a large scale? Yeah, that's true. I mean, Mountain was monumental.
Yeah,
so.
it had to be. Oh yeah, sorry. There was a piece. I wish I could show the picture of Monument, but anyway, it's okay. But most of people saw it. But Monument also, I've been reading this book called Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter, and it was turned into a play a couple of years ago. Cillian Murphy was in it. I actually didn't see the play because I just read the book and I wanted to keep the book in my heart. And there was a passage in it, so maybe I'll read that out because
that'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a reasoning why I wanted something big. And even when I put in the gallery, it seemed small. It didn't seem big enough. But anyway, so this is the thing. So it's oil when you look closer, mud. When you look closer, sand. When you sip it, silt becoming silk. Oh yeah, I should say, the book is about a man who is a scholar for Ted Hughes. It's a fiction book, and he's an academic, and he's studying Ted Hughes, and who is famous for writing The Crow. And his wife dies from cancer, and he's left with 2 little small children. So he's going through the devastation of her loss. So I'll just put in context. So he writes, I missed her so much that I wanted to build a 100-foot memorial to her with my bare hands. I wanted to see her sitting in a vast stone chair in Hyde Park, enjoying her view. Everyone passing could comprehend how much I miss her, how physical my missing is. I miss her so much. It is a vast golden prince. It's a concert hall. It's 1,000 trees, a lake, 9,000 buses, 1 million cars, 20 million birds, and more. The whole city is my missing her. Ew, said the crow, you sound like a fridge magnet. So that was, yeah, I just thought that was all right. You know, when you're going through, you know, you just want, like all of us have gone through, but you just want yeah, it's all indescribable, and you just want some way of kind of representing that chasm of loss. So that's why I had to make it big, but to me it's not even big enough.
Yeah, the physical and the emotional, yeah, it's all there, and the stages and the stages of your printmaking, and it all makes sense when you explain it in this way, and it's wonderful that your work has helped you with that, and that you can express through your work, you know. It's wonderful.
Thanks. And thanks for taking the time for the chat, and thanks to DLR for supporting the show, and Searsha.
And somebody here has said that they're definitely going to go and see it, and that's great. I think it's Yvonne, and someone, just one other, yeah, someone, Tracy, is saying that she's afraid to work with the copper plates because they're so expensive. So yeah, that comes into it.
Well, they're hard to get. We couldn't get any in college last week. We just couldn't buy them. They weren't available. So we're trying to. The colleges might be buying zinc. That's strange. There's a shortage of it at the moment. Yeah.
And will zinc work? Is it?
Yeah. Zinc.
Right.
Zinc can work. Yeah, it's etched the same way.
And Clodagh is wondering if any of the work is for sale.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's all for sale. Yeah. Any offers? The price list is down there, but
That's great. I didn't know that either. So yeah, very relevant. So yeah, I mean, if there's anybody, I don't know if we're okay time wise, or
yeah, it's 10 to 8 now. Yeah.
thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, that's, you guys might be going swimming, it seems.
Yeah, that's I suppose I'm due to meet her, Vanessa, for a swim. Met her in reality first. We've been talking about that swimming.
And thank you.
The girls from Philip Higgins.
This would be the point where we would all have a glass of wine. So can you see the messages, Cora?
If you click on chat, Cora, you can see the messages coming in now. There's a lot of people just expressing thanks, I think.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, everyone's going to the pub. Lovely. Yeah, Vanessa, I'll meet you if you come back to the show, and we'll go for a swim. Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Really glad you could all be here.
Oh, Margot, nice to see you too. All the names I've seen, people I haven't seen. This would be a good party.
That's great.
And yeah, Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you, Mieke, in March for the second part of the talk. Is that right?
Yes,
Yes.
on the 10th. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Camilla.
All right, thank you so much.
All the best. Bye-bye. Bye.